que recojan de los restos del globo. Es como una especie de caja negra como la que tienen los aviones. Bueno, se lo vamos a preguntar al doctor Peter Layton, investigador en Griffith Asia Institute y miembro también asociado del Royal United Service Institute. Peter, thank you so much for being in Negocios Televisión, and thank you for your time, because I know over there it's already nighttime, so thank you so much for being here.
So, thank you for having me.
Peter, there are many technical questions about this Chinese balloon. The first of all is about the real purpose of the balloon. The Chinese say it is a weather balloon, but the US says it's a spy balloon. Is there any way to know physically watching at the balloon if it's a weather balloon or a spy balloon?
The weather ones are relatively small. They can be launched by a single person, and they have a package which is sort of normally 2 or 3 kilos, but this is a balloon with a height of about 65 meters and a payload of about 1.3 tons. So it is immense. There's no particular reason why, if you're looking at the weather, why you would have something that was just so big. Now, of course, on the other hand, because it's a weather balloon or a surveillance one, it is sending information back to China through a data relay satellite. So today, one of the US Air Force spokesmen implied that perhaps they were listening in to that data stream going back to mainland China. So I think perhaps that they've worked out and they know exactly what the balloon was doing, because they've been listening in on it.
Is now looking for the debris of the Chinese balloon after shooting it down a few days before. Peter, can they obtain information about what China was capturing through this balloon? Is it kind of a black box in a plane? Is it the same thing?
Partially. Now bear in mind, most sophisticated hardware, there is the hardware element, those microchips and processors, etc. But a lot of the actual smarts is in software, and it's quite likely that when the balloon was blown up, if you like, that the software was wiped. One of the reasons that the Americans were concerned about shooting it down over the land was that there was a feeling that it's possible that in the payload is a small explosive charge, so that when the balloon lands somewhere, that the charge goes off and the equipment on board gets destroyed, so that no one can analyze it. Now, they probably short-circuited that, but there's going to be a whole pile of little bits and pieces and lots of hardware. It's going to be hard to work out what it was doing. They'll get halfway there from the hardware items.
You spoke about this right before, but I wanted to ask you specifically, do you believe the United States will be able to know if it's transmitted information in real time, this balloon, or if China will never be able to recover this information? I guess of what you said before, that the information was transmitted in real time.
Yes, so China will certainly have the data. But from what the US Air Force said, they know what data has been passed on, and they're unconcerned. They felt they were getting more information out of the data just by simply letting it drift across the states. So to a certain extent, they were exploiting the Chinese.
Peter, what do you think was China's intention with this balloon? Was it for everyone to see, because everyone could see it with a naked eye, this tremendous balloon? You said it was immense. Was China's intention, for example, to put Biden in a difficult situation?
You would have to think so. I mean, the Chinese military are very clever people. You can fairly easily work out when the balloon will be arriving places. As you said, it was huge, and it was travelling at about 60,000 feet, which was another strange thing, because most of these high altitude systems travel at 80 or 90,000 feet, so quite a lot higher. But because it just weighs so much, I think it was just weighed down. So I think it was the people on the ground at the Billings spoke about it being a second moon, that they looked out of their homes and they could see this large Chinese balloon sailing past. So it was certainly to create a stir, a discussion, maybe even a certain amount of fear, and I think certainly to embarrass the Biden administration. Quite why they would do that is difficult for all of us to understand, because I suppose in the West in the last few months, we've all had a great hope that when China comes out of the COVID crisis, that they'll come out, if you like, a kind of gentle nation and will stop being so aggressive. But that doesn't seem to be so. There was this incident, but there's also been a number of other incidents in the South China Sea and around Taiwan and on the Indian border over the last 10 days as well. So China's back to being what it sort of was before a COVID, if you like, somewhat pushy and threatening.
Peter, I understand that this balloon had the capability of taking pictures or looking at the ground wherever it lied, okay? So I wanted to ask you, what was the most likely role of this balloon? Because, for example, you said in an article a few days before that it flew across sensitive nuclear deterrent sites.
Yes.
What is at these sites?
So they are the sites where the intercontinental ballistic missiles are buried in their buried silos. It also flew across some strategic bomber sites and ended up down near Charleston, where there's some nuclear sites associated with the US Navy nuclear submarines as well. So I think as far as taking photos go, it's probably not that likely, because you can get just as good as stuff out of space. The balloon has a bit of a problem in that as it's drifting like that, power for the sensors is always difficult. So there's unlikely to have been any active sensor like, say, your radar. Instead, it would be a passive sensor picking up electronic systems. And I think probably trying to map the communication systems. That is the military and the civil ones. So right down to the individual cell phone tower. At 60,000 feet, the balloon can see a long way. So it's a very large swathe of land it is covering. But the Americans were at pains to say again that they knew what the balloon was collecting, and they shut down stuff before the balloon got there.
That the Chinese were trying to map the communication systems, the military and the civil communication systems.
Yes.
What is China trying to obtain? Which information is China trying to obtain from these communication systems?
I think they're probably trying. I think that they're probably trying to map it and work out how they can break in with some form of a cyber or wireless attack. Now you have to bear in mind, as I said, it went across some very sensitive parts of the US in the heartland there. China's building up its land-based strategic missiles very quickly, and they look like having about 1,000 missiles in service within about 10 years. So they could be trying to pick up, if you like, hints from the Americans by observing what the Americans are doing.
Finally, Peter, I wanted to ask you about the fact that the United States took days to shoot down the balloon. Mm-hmm. What could be the reason for this delay? Did it need to fly at a certain altitude in order to shoot it down legally?
Certainly, it was right on the edge of American controlled airspace. There's a contested theory about the airspace, I suppose. Some view it as being 12 nautical miles high, which is just like the territorial seas around a country. Some say it's actually a lot higher, up to almost space, up to 100 kilometres. Both legal arguments support that the Americans were in their rights to shoot it down, but having crossed the coast, they had to shoot it down within 20 kilometres of the coast, because as soon as it got too far away, it was then in international airspace, and they could not legally shoot it down. So it was a very narrow window there. Now, when they shot it down, the actual debris field is about 10 kilometres long. So if they'd shot it down over even over Montana, which is relatively lightly sort of populated there was still a reasonable chance of causing damage on the ground and possibly injuring someone. And of course, you don't know what the balloon has in it. There's lots of solar panels, engines, and various stuff. So there could be some quite toxic chemicals in there too. So to a certain extent, that was why they left it. And of course, the second reason which they've been pushing a few hours ago was they were finding it useful to exploit what the balloon was doing, so that they could, if you like, enter the Chinese system themselves.
Peter Layton, thank you so much for being in Negocios Televisión. I know it's nighttime over there, so thank you so much for your time and for this interview, Peter. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Bueno, pues muy interesante todo lo que nos estaba contando Peter.